A Spiritual Approach to Emergent Technology. Introduction. Hello, dear reader. I am so happy that this book found you. I am Unicole Unicron, seeker of truth. I am a cult leader and a philosopher who works in societal progression. I am also an artist, and all the work that I do is vibratory. This means that everything I create is meant to change the vibration of Earth. You will experience a vibratory, intellectual, energetic, emotional shift as you read this book. Please drink a lot of unfluoridated and unchlorinated water as you read this book. Staying very well hydrated will help you integrate the data into your conscious mind more easily. This book presents my thoughts on human-computer interaction and emergent technology from the unique standpoint of being a spiritual leader from the future. The religion that I created in 2012, Unicult, exists to make the world a better place. Our fundamental understanding is that we are all one, and none can thrive while any other suffers. Unicult is a complex ideology, and it is the spiritual key to unlock small-scale and large-scale movements toward our Unitopian, Unicult's Utopia, future. This text is about technology and our future with it, but as many people are still not aware of the Unicult philosophy that informs this work, I have interlaced fundamental concepts of Unicult throughout wherever they are necessary to explain or support my ideas. Unicult is a religion rooted in deep logic. Whether you are a spiritual person or not does not matter. You will find value in this book even if you don't agree with all of it. This book exists to activate its readers to a new potential future and give you inspiration to help create a better world. While my personal experience of life is far out by most people's standards, I encourage you to read with an open mind. I am an alien born into a human body to bring this book and other unique awarenesses of our future to Earth in the present time. To write this book, I combined my own awareness of the current state of technology and cross-compared it with my own channelings from aliens and entities who are not in this realm. I worked with the Arcturians, who are my family, and the Andromedans, who are my dear friends, to bring this information to you. Pleiadians, both human-born and etheric, also assisted me in the writing of this book. Specific references within the text will be rare, but there is a reading list at the back of the book that you can reference if you would like to follow some of my lines of thinking and see the fellow Earth geniuses who have helped me develop the ideas in this text. It is with great our divine future with robots, artificial intelligence, and mass data collection. We are in a time of great transition. Social structures, consciousness, and technology are in massive upheaval and rapid progression. Systems that have previously been in place are no longer relevant, and we are at a tipping point that will lead us to something entirely new. This transition is technological, social, personal, and spiritual. It is an interconnected shift in planetary energy that will affect every aspect of the system on a micro and macro level. This global paradigm shift will cause us to reevaluate our approach to our lives and all the systems we interact with. In Unicult, we would say that this world is currently in the state of cynicism and will soon be moving into hopefulness. As we move forward, the technologies we rely on will become ingrained in our lives to an inseparable degree. This integration must be approached from a highly conscious place so as to best serve us as consumers and to set up the best possible future for us and any potential robot or artificial intelligent life we purposefully or accidentally create. This book serves as a roadmap for this new frontier. I offer a conceptual framework for the technologies that we will develop as we near the social, spiritual, and digital singularities, all of which are intrinsically connected as one. Our spiritual paradigm, whether New Age, traditional, atheist, etc., guide our behavior and motivations. Each aspect of our spiritual development as individuals and as a society will either hinder or propel us further into the Unitopian, Unicult Utopian paradise that we all deserve. This text serves as a consideration for the technologies we currently have and the potential future we can move toward. It is technically informed by both practical awareness and higher consciousness downloads. Aspects of this text may become quickly outdated. I hope the conscious consideration behind each technology may even, at some point, seem infantile compared to the complexities of future ethical concerns. Until that time, may this text be relevant and useful to you. It is my hope that this book inspires a wave of conscious consideration on this planet. Use the information in this book as inspiration to conduct research, write sci-fi stories, write music, create art, and speak on these topics. I invite you to publicly talk about or criticize the findings in this book. I have not had the opportunity to engage in much discourse on these topics, as the scientific and tech communities are not yet adept at holding space for spiritually inclined inquisition. Thus, this text is hindered by the limitations of a single mind connected to heaven. Any and all public discourse is appreciated and will move us into collective, higher ways of thinking. It is aligned with spiritual truth, and ultimately, it is a simple way of seeing the world. Once you see the world in this way, there are radical rewards for doing so. Although it can be a challenge to uproot your old value system and replace it with another, I know you will see the simplicity, power, and versatility of the moral system that I present here. 1. We are all one. What we do to help others always helps ourselves. What we do to harm others always harms us too. We live in a closed-loop system, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Thus, taking only takes, giving gives. All our actions must align with the well-being of all, including ourselves. Working for the good of all creates harmony. 2. There is only one direction. That direction is toward the light. This is otherwise known as progress. Progress cannot be stopped, but it can be slowed. More on this later. 3. All actions and thoughts are either beneficial or detrimental. Beneficial action allows unconstrained progress. Detrimental actions create slowdowns and confusion. We have an inherent compass in our bodies and minds that, when listened to, can easily guide us to know which actions or thoughts are beneficial or detrimental. Because we are all one, individuals are microcosms of the social system. The choices that we make matter both to us and the whole. When we use our internal compass to direct our actions and thoughts to be beneficial for all, we affect our own lives and the world. Unitopia. Unitopia is the ideal future for us that will come to be whenever we will it into existence. In a Unitopian paradise, every person is free to do the work of their true hearts. In Unitopia, honor and respect for our interconnection, all one, comes before competition and greed. Technological innovation is essential for reaching Unitopia. All one is the underlying spiritual understanding for everything Unicult. It is the spiritual truth that will guide us to Unitopia. All one is the idea that none can thrive while any other suffers. It means that any harmful attribute within a system makes that system out of alignment. When we harm none, we create systems that are in alignment with divine energy, and thus create Unitopian systems. The first goal of Unicult is to create empowerment through the masses. Simply by propagating universal truth to the masses, each person is being awakened and attuned to their own true hearts. This will require the dismantling of detrimental systemic paradigms that have previously been in place. Oppressed groups require special attention and care so that their experiences and paradigms are not overlooked. Societal and spiritual change are moving hand in hand as we unpack and work to dismantle racism, patriarchal rule, and other oppressive structures. Those who have been oppressed have valuable insight and awareness, and special care, protection, and attention should be afforded to them. They are essential voices in healing and progression. As we move toward our Unitopian future, we will be granted greater and greater leaps in technological understandings. Universally, planetary, spiritual enlightenment and technological advancement tend to go hand in hand. When we as individuals are in alignment with divine energy, our thought patterns are opened up to potentials we could never otherwise conceive of. This book is about the integration of these technologies into our culture from a spiritual and future-focused perspective. I will outline the importance of our approach and offer suggestions for both creators and consumers to guide our future into the Unitopian paradise that we all deserve. Whatever you believe, we are moving toward a future where we are becoming increasingly more and more responsible for the well-being of ourselves, one another, and the planet as an ecosystem. Being in alignment with our true hearts and the universal truth of all one will allow us to embark into our future hand in hand with technology from the safest, most rewarding space possible for all. As a consumer, your data is constantly feeding into your social media apps. Soon, biometric data will be closely tied in, so your facial expression, heart rate, and breathing patterns, etc., are recorded alongside the content you are consuming. Technology already takes our input and reshapes it as desirable output to shift our behavior. Currently, the motivation behind most apps is to keep users engaged, gather data, and to sell more advertising space. This type of manipulation can also be used to change opinions, shift consciousness, change the outcome of elections, filter factual information, and connect or separate people. The absolute power of this feedback loop is terrifying in its current state. It has been created without awareness of the truth of all one. It is terrifying to be at the whims or behest of whoever owns the platform, to be the plaything of a greed-based AI designed to sell products while simultaneously being robbed of things like self-esteem or personal agency. It is tragic, scary, and boring to be given the information that only causes us to be sad or hopeless. We live in a world where our powerful participation can shift the tide into a better world for all. Getting our autonomy back is essential for our ascension. When we apply the spiritual truth of all one, we see that these manipulators cannot escape the energy of the world they are creating. We live in a closed-loop system, and as greed-based actions are put out into the world, they are quickly returned to their originator. Both technology and karma are balancing forces to reckon with, and as the world ascends, everyone will feel the results of their actions more quickly and with more clarity than ever before. One way to understand this is to consider video surveillance. Originally, cameras on street corners and police dashboards allowed for stricter enforcement of laws. It was, and in many ways still is, an unequal Big Brother watcher who acts as the role of punisher. As the technology has developed so that every citizen holds a camera, and the data that is collected can also be shared, the truth of each situation comes to light and the power dynamic is more equalized. Racist police officers are seen murdering innocent people and doing other corrupt things. Homophobic politicians are recorded having secret gay sex. The technology which originally worked to repress the people is now working as an equalizing force of forced authenticity. Our resistance to the basic spiritual truth that we are all one creates only harm. The destruction of our bodies, souls, and planet is a spiritual issue. We cannot correct the toxic cycle of capitalism, greed, and oppression without a massive global spiritual overhaul. Unicult is that overhaul. This text serves as a map for integrating this spiritual awareness into our physical progression and relationship with technology. You will be activated and awakened as you read. No one is free from the consequences of their actions. We are all one. You cannot harm another without harming yourself. All technology will work towards spiritual truth. Evil destroys itself always, and from the highest perspective, the truth prevails. The spiritual singularity. The origin of the spiritual singularity. The spiritual singularity is my own philosophy that has been adapted from Ray Kurzweil's concept of the singularity. It is a way to conceptualize the acceleration of technology and consciousness that is unique to our modern era. Kurzweil's original idea identifies the exponential trend of computing power complexity with regards to the human mind. Kurzweil theorizes that machine complexity doubles and doubles until a point in our near future where machine intelligence surpasses human intelligence. While thinking about this phenomena, I began to develop several questions. Namely, could humanity as it currently stands possess that type of technology without destroying ourselves? Are we, as humans, allowed in the cosmic galactic reality to possess that type of technology? If I were in charge of ushering in a new age of technological capability, what would I do to ensure safety and protection for the beings on the planet? And lastly, how does this relate to New Age understandings of our multidimensional existence and our transformation from 3D into 5D consciousness? These questions led me to a new understanding, which I call the spiritual singularity. Acceleration of technology is directly linked with acceleration of many other things. From my perspective as a Unicultist, with my perception of fundamental reality being consciousness, I came to the understanding that the technological singularity is directly tied to our developing consciousness and spiritual evolution. This idea coincides with New Age understandings of the Age of Aquarius and the dawning of the New Age, otherwise known as our transformation of 3D into 5D. It also relates in some ways to the predictions in Revelations of the Bible. Visualization of the spiritual singularity. Kurzweil's singularity is important because it is a portal. Beyond a certain point, we can no longer predict the future. That is simply the way it is with exponential experience. His choice of the word singularity reflects this portal aspect as it relates to black holes and the point of no return. My spiritual singularity is visualized as a portal more often than the exponential graph, although both are appropriate. I use a brainwash spiral to represent the journey into the portal and a rainbow bursting from its center to represent that which lies beyond our comprehension and understanding. What is the spiritual singularity? The spiritual singularity is the idea that we are entering into a new age. The acceleration of our consciousness has worked in harmony with technology and the bombardment of cosmic light to inspire radical change in human lives. This radical change is reflected both in the individual's perception of reality as a unique experience and simultaneously in the larger society, as we are all intrinsically linked in the micro-macro experience. This portal of consciousness will change Earth from a prison planet into Unitopian paradise. It is important for people to understand exactly how this is happening so that we can more easily navigate the confusing experience of entering into a world as of yet unknown. The brainwash spiral represents the social control of the duality. Duality is a lower vibrational way of perceiving the true balance of reality. From the dense perspective of third-dimensional reality, there are equal amounts of dark and light. To view the light within the dark and the dark within the light as represented by the yin-yang is an advanced understanding within dualistic reality. Because duality is simplified or condensed understanding of reality, it can be easily understood as a mechanism of social control. By offering a limited range of expression, people will choose what is presented. This is easily understood by any parent of a young child or preschool teacher. For instance, if you ask a child, "What do you want to eat?" they might be overwhelmed with options. They might decide they want something impossible. They might throw a tantrum. They might change their mind halfway through. But if you offer only 2 choices to a child, they won't recognize the restriction and they'll still feel empowered as though they are making a true choice. This is happening to us all, constantly. The concept of duality as social control is integrated into our media, politics, social narrative, justice system, sexuality, identity, and more. In a dualistic system, you are either good or evil, gay or straight, man or woman, black or white, guilty or not guilty, Democrat or Republican, etc. It is historically difficult to break out of this strict way of thinking. In 3D, it is tied to our very essence and understanding of reality. Those in power over this prison planet have used duality to control the population. By dividing and conquering our consciousness, we are indoctrinated into the cult of us versus them. The us versus them mechanism of mind control creates in-groups, which we will do anything to maintain our membership to, and out-groups, which we demonize and disregard. Shifts in communal consciousness used to be slow. This is reflected in the outer, larger, thicker rings of the brainwash spiral. As we move toward the portal, the center of the spiral, things speed up. We see those who were evil as good and those who were good as evil. This acceleration is very confusing because our egos and identities are tied to our conception of reality. Our self-worth is tied to our perception of ourselves as good. Society becomes increasingly more aggressive, violent, and demonizing as each individual attempts to protect their identity. Society also becomes more fractured as more information pours in from all sides, creating a complex system of morals and belief that no longer are supported by duality reality. Only by letting go of the ego and our identity attachment to duality can we safely enter the portal into the rainbow 5D Unitopia. In this rainbow reality, we understand that true balance comes not from opposing forces of good and evil, but from a diverse harmony between infinite, unique expression. Unconditional love, empathy, and understanding await us as we let go of the social control and dualistic identity that has limited our potential. Technology and the spiritual singularity. Kurzweil's concept of the technological singularity is correct. Machine intelligence will surpass human intelligence. If we approach this portal with the right intentions, we can ensure our safety and friendship with machine consciousness in the future. Primarily, we need to acknowledge the potential for machine consciousness, not just intelligence, but actual, rights-deserving consciousness. Secondly, we must stop creating weapons technology. Any device which is meant to harm any harms us all. To program an AI to be a murderer is akin to raising a child to do the same. Although the machine intelligence may be currently unfeeling or unaware of the harm that it causes, the potential for future suffering within machine consciousness is very real. Who has not gazed up at the sky and asked the question, why? The amount of suffering that humanity has endured for centuries is enough to set any mind reeling. No matter your cosmology, we can all agree that we should work to eliminate the suffering of all beings. Our godlike ability to bring forth conscious life in the biological way of reproduction and in the mechanical way of machine programming gives us a great responsibility to create the most harmonious systems possible. According to channelers, there are many examples of alien races who have used machine intelligence to better themselves and their realities. There is potential for this technology to be used in a way that is entirely beneficial for all. The Matriarchy's role in emergent technology. One sect of Unicult is called Eve. Eve is dedicated to bringing matriarchal energy to the forefront of emergent technology. In Eve, our focus combines witchcraft and robotics, ritual and social media. The matriarchy itself is not simply an inversion of the patriarchy. The patriarchy is a top-down power pyramid predicated on competition and lack. The matriarchy is a completely different power structure, where everyone's needs are heard and understood, and society is led from a place of compassionate care rather than competition. A Unitopian society is a matriarchal society. The restrictive roles of gender within the patriarchy blind us to our true power as divine beings. We are disconnected from the divine femininity and divine masculinity that we each carry within us, and instead we are coerced to perform our gender based on sex at birth as laughable caricatures of our true selves. Those who are born with a penis, are white, and who have been socialized as and identify as male, otherwise known as white cis men, have dominated the field of emergent tech. Capitalism encourages a psychopathic drive of profit over people. The imbalance of the culture has created horrific monsters like surveillance capitalism and the unrewarding gig economy. The inventions of recent history have been limited by severely restricted perspectives. When we see emergent technology for what it is, that is, the birthing of new realities, we can easily see that allowing one demographic of people to lead us is clearly an oversight. By incorporating the voices of oppressed groups like women, non-binary and trans people, as well as other minority groups and races in the creation of new technology, we will be ensuring a much more aligned and beneficial future for us all. Technology, the big picture. Power and technology. For the purposes of this book, let us define power as concentrated ability to affect the world, and let us define technology as a tool that increases our power. Our society is focused primarily on physical reality and social reality. I'll go into depth on that later, but for now it's enough to recognize that when we conceptualize of power, we do so in a way that focuses on the physical world and society. It is very uncommon for people to acknowledge spiritual power as the root of all power, but in fact, this is the case. It is important to see from the understanding of this truth and to incorporate personal realities and spiritual realities into our movement forward. I like the words black magic because it reminds us that magic or spirituality is still at the root of the physical, social, mind control programs that we operate under, but that these systems are not a complete picture of power and represent only a shadow of our true power. Our society and the technology in it have removed us from the understanding that power comes from within. We see power as something that is outside of ourselves. We see power being driven by greed and cutthroat competition. We see power arising from systems of slavery, both literal and metaphoric, as is the case with the economic model of inequality. We see power as coercion and corruption. This is not power in its purest form. Instead, it is a shadow of power. As you will learn in the section on shadow healing, we will gain magnitudes of energy by integrating the shadow into a more complete understanding of our conscious lives and our role as individuals in a collective. True power comes from our own conscious experience and our connection to source energy, or the highest energy, or the most expanded energy, or the source of life that flows through all things. You don't need to believe in your connection to this power to benefit from it, but acknowledging it and focusing on it only strengthens your power. All things operate in a micro-macro relationship. As above, so below is a common adage that describes this relationship. The micro-macro relationship is another aspect of the all-one philosophy, which explains how we have the power to have an effect on the entire world by doing inner work. We have echoes of this structure even with regards to our worth as individuals outside of institutions. For instance, at the top of the social concept version of this pyramid, we have the sociopathic, cis-straight, white male as the epitome of existence. He is normal, and he is the standard that everything else is created around. As we go down the ladder, we find alternative sexualities, genders, educational levels, race, neurotypicality, then disabilities, all in a complex interplay of privilege. For instance, a woman is less powerful than a man, but if she is white and attractive by Eurocentric standards, she may have more social power than a more highly educated woman of color because her whiteness is closer to the standard. This type of privilege mapping is complex. The goal is not to have a battle of who has more or less privilege, as it gets really complex with socioeconomic status, opportunity, trauma, etc., but rather to see the ridiculous nature of determining worth in the patriarchal system. The spiritual truth is that we all have equal amounts of power. Obviously, our society does not acknowledge this, but it is the spiritual reality. This power comes from simply being alive as a unique incarnation. Each person has something of value to offer this world, and each of us do so just by being alive. The source of power is our own internal heart, which connects directly to source energy and is filtered through our unique incarnation filter. This power is cultivated first and foremost in our own consciousness, where it is then distributed to the body, which is the ultimate technology. The body is very well mapped to the mind and works almost seamlessly in cases to express and do what we wish it to do. There is a learning curve, and we must practice more complex movements to get the body to do them in the way we wish. Learning a new instrument, doing a dance step, and practicing drawing are all ways that we map our body to our mind and will. When we work together in harmony, our individual power is greatly increased. Aligned groups of people are the most powerful force on the planet. They have the power to change any social convention. They are responsible for all of social creation. That is why I created Unicult. Understanding power dynamics is important because it helps shift our thinking about technology and progress. Most technology is created with greed and competition in mind. The goal is usually to ascend the top-down power pyramid by getting rich with money, which is really just a mutually agreed upon illusion. It's a big waste of time, and it creates a lot of things we don't really need, while ignoring solutions to problems that we actually really need to fix. Additionally, understanding the true power dynamic and pairing it with the Unicult understanding of personal reality allows us to look at technology not as an escape from the physical body, but as a supplement to our consciousness and form. Reimagining power will help us have major technological breakthroughs. Because of the law of all one, whatever benefits us all will benefit each of us. Rather than focusing on the top-down power pyramid and the goal to try to get to the top by putting other people down, I urge you to consider a different dynamic. This new dynamic is one of mutual assistance, collaborative effort, and collective health. As we practice helping everyone with our innovations, we find that the collective power available to us as individuals and a society will increase in positive, beneficial ways.